What's really interesting about this particular story is every single doctor out there would have said, oh yeah, you're 36, you don't need to get screened for anything. You're not going to get cancer at 36 years old. And yet we have many members below 40 for whom we found actual cancer. So, cancer incidence is there even in young people. We're just not finding it until later.
This was probably one of the best podcast interviews I've had so far. I just interviewed Emi Gal, who's the founder of Ezra. Ezra offers full body MRI screening, and the mission of the company is to help identify potential cancer early with the goal of ending cancer early, which is possible if you detect it early. We also talked about longevity protocols, as he has a super optimized process around his mental health, getting his blood work done, and optimizing the markers so that they're all in the best possible state so that he has best possible scores. And he walks through how he does that with supplements. We talked about his weightlifting and his exercise routine. And then we ended the show talking about what technology advancements that he's the most excited about in healthcare. I didn't think we would be able to cram all the different topics into an hour, which we did. So I'm excited to share this, and there are a lot of lessons and a lot of takeaways. And for me personally, there are a lot of action steps that I will implement into my own life. So I hope you join this episode. Here we go. Welcome to the Karnjanaprakorn Show. I'm an entrepreneur, a podcaster, investor, collector, runner, partner, and parent. Most people know me as the founder of Skillshare. As I approached my 40th birthday, I found myself at a crossroads. So I embarked on a year-long sabbatical to rediscover what makes life truly fulfilling. This podcast is a personal journey to explore how we can thrive in all aspects of life, from work and family to relationships, hobbies, and beyond. In each episode, I'll explore novel ideas that challenge our own perspectives. Whether you're seeking inspiration, practical advice, or just curious, join me on this journey, and welcome to the show. So welcome to another episode of the Karnjanaprakorn Show. And today I'm really excited to have Emi Gal, who I followed for many years on Twitter. And I followed him because he was also another founder. His company is extremely innovative, but he also writes about a lot of the topics that I'm into right now, like longevity, dialing your biomarkers, supplements, mental health, annual challenges, technology advancement. So I had a long list of topics. Hopefully we'll go through at least 20% of them. I doubt we'll be able to go through all of them, but welcome to the show, Emi.
Thanks, Michael. It's great to be here.
I guess to get started, for the people that don't know what you do and what your company does, do you want to maybe give a quick background and what it is and the mission of why you started it?
For sure. Yeah. So I'll start with a bit of background myself, actually, because it's kind of relevant to my Ezra experience. I'm originally from Romania, studied applied mathematics and computer science, Bucharest. And while I was in college, I started a company in a very different space than Ezra, in the kind of advertising technology space, built one of the first video ad servers on the internet back in 2008. Turned out to be a kind of great idea. I was acquired by Teads, which is a big ad tech company out of New York City. And then I kind of started Ezra shortly thereafter. And the two reasons why I started Ezra are, one, I'm personally at high risk for cancer. I have over 250 moles on my body. It's been the highest risk bracket for skin cancer. And I've had cancer in my family. Sadly, my mother passed away from cancer because she found cancer late. And so that got me really interested in the space. And that's how I learned that we have a cure for cancer. It's early detection. It's just that we're not able to find cancer early ever in the body. And that's what Ezra is trying to solve.
And how does Ezra solve that, or how does that do that?
Yeah, so we've created a full body MRI that screens for cancer in all of the organs you cannot currently screen for cancer in. That takes between 30 and 60 minutes and is powered by a number of AIs. And we chose MRI because it's the most accurate imaging modality there is. So when you're looking at the accuracy of a test, you're looking at sensitivity and specificity, which are the two measures of accuracy. So sensitivity is how sensitive is it? Is it going to catch everything? Specificity is if it catches something, is it specific to the disease you're looking for? In our case, cancer. MRI is highly sensitive, like we're talking 97, 98% sensitivity. And it's very specific, around 80 to 90%, depending on the organ. So it's kind of a perfect modality to screen for cancer. But it's an expensive modality because it takes a long time to do MRI scans. So what we're doing at Ezra is we're building a number of AIs to make MRI scans affordable. We can kind of dive into that. And as a result of that, last year, we launched the most affordable full body MRI in the world. It's a 30-minute scan priced at $13.50.
Okay. Wow. How early can it detect cancer?
Yeah, so we can detect cancer as small as 3 millimeters. The slice thickness in our full body MRI is, depending on the organ, between 2 to 3 millimeters, which means that we can find something as small as 3 millimeters. That means that we can find things as early as stage 0, which is kind of
Wow.
precursor to cancer. And we've scanned about 7,000 people. We've helped 500 people or so find possible cancer at various different stages.
Wow. What happens when like you find something in stage 0?
Yeah, so there are 3 types of cancer we find, and there are actually 500 things that we find that are not cancer that we can kind of dive into. We find, in terms of cancer, we find precursors to cancer. So there's something in the pancreas, for example, called intrapapillary mucosal neoplasm, which is IPMN for short, that increases your risk of pancreatic cancer. You just don't know which people with an IPMN will actually develop pancreatic cancer. So what we do there is we monitor over time. Someone who has an IPMN will just say, hey, you absolutely need to do an annual Ezra scan in order to see whether there's anything that progresses in terms of these IPMNs growing or kind of some other abnormal growths in your pancreas. So that's one. The second type is indolent cancers, or cancers that are not, you shouldn't do anything about. So, for example, prostate cancer is a very, very slow growing type of cancer that most of the time will not lead to kind of a dying from it, especially if the man is in their 70s. He'll die from something else before prostate cancer. So those two need to be monitored. And then the third type is clinically significant cancer, where we know from the screening scan that it is likely cancer, and then we recommend a follow-up diagnostic scan. And if the follow-up diagnostic scan confirms the presence of cancer, then they go and do a biopsy and kind of evaluate the cancer further.
Got it. Where does AI fit into all this?
Yeah, so the as I mentioned, the challenge with full body MRIs is that they're expensive. And so what we have done is we've developed 3 AIs that are used at every step of the screening process. So in our case, our full body MRI is acquired faster than normally than an MRI would be acquired. And then we use AI to enhance the quality of the images. That's called Ezra Flash. Once the scan has been done, it goes to radiologists, and we have an AI called Ezra Assist that assists radiologists when they read scans. And it was originally cleared for prostate, and we're working on clearing it for the rest of the body. And then once the radiology report has been done, we have an AI called Ezra Reporter that converts radiology reports into plain English so that anyone can understand what they mean. It's always reviewed by a doctor before it's delivered to members. But that Reporter AI has enabled us to go from an average of 5 to 7 days to deliver reports to members to an average of 3 days. So it's kind of like significantly improved the member experience. So we use AI to increase efficiency, and in doing so, we decrease cost, and then we pass those cost savings to consumers.
Got it. So the cost savings is more on the, I guess, the process after the MRI scan versus actually inside of the MRI scan.
Correct. Yeah. So we acquire the images, and then the images go to our AIs, and they get post processed, and then we use those post processed images to read and so on.
Is there any advancements with creating more modern MRIs?
So MRI hardware is actually pretty great already. Like you are measuring the strength of an MRI in Teslas, and 3 Tesla MRIs, or 3T for short, is kind of the gold standard right now for imaging the human body. But just so to get an idea of how powerful this magnetic field is, it's 60,000 times. 3 Tesla magnet is 60,000 times the magnetic field of Earth. So it's like a really really strong magnet, it 3T scanners can provide like exquisite images. However, because MRI is kind of a noisy environment, it's magnetic resonance that you're using to create images of the body, these scans take a long time. And so our AIs help make MRI scans faster.
Do you have any stories that come to mind of catching cancer really early or at the right stage with one of the patients that have used Ezra?
Oh, many. Yeah,
Yeah.
I actually get an email almost every week from someone who found cancer early through Ezra and got treated, and they're now cancer free. I'll give you an example. This is like relatively recent. A member reached out to me. His name is like very young, 36 years old. And he told me that we had found a brain tumor for him. I was asymptomatic. He thought he was healthy. It turned out to be a glioblastoma, which is like the most aggressive, kind of bad type of malignant brain tumor you can have. He had it removed surgically, and this is like a year ago, and he's now fine and cancer free. And his doctors told him that had he not done the Ezra scan, he would have found his tumor, 5, 10 years from now when he would have been symptomatic, and it would have been too late. And so he reached out to me just to thank us for creating Ezra and for helping him find cancer early, and to tell me that as a result of his Ezra experience, he's decided to go to med school and study oncology and work in the field of cancer. And so it's kind of a touching, and I had a meeting with him, and it was kind of a touching moment. And we have many such instances now. What's really interesting about this particular story is every single doctor out there would have said, oh, yeah, you're 36. You don't need to get screened for anything. You're fine for cancer. You're not going to get cancer at 36 years old. And yet, we have many members below 40 for whom we found actual cancer. So, cancer incidence is there even in young people. We're just not finding it until later.
What age would you recommend people to start screening for cancer?
So I recommend that everyone gets a full body MRI scan with Ezra as early as they can afford one. I think it's important to have a baseline scan, even like when you're 20, because that baseline scan will then help us find cancer early or increase the sensitivity even further when you do follow-up scans. In Ezra's case, every single scan is analyzed in context of all the priors. And so if you do multiple scans with Ezra, all of those scans will be factored into the analysis, which helps increase the accuracy of the overall protocol.
Got it. You mentioned earlier that it also picks up other things that within the scan. What are some of those other things, and do you use that information to help any of the members as well?
Yeah, so we find 500 other types of things in the scan. The most, I guess, frequent ones would be fatty liver disease, especially in men, which can be caused by alcohol, carbs, too much red meat. We find disc herniations that are maybe asymptomatic but could lead to pain and so on if you don't handle them well. We find endometriosis, polycystic ovary syndrome, so PCOS, many other types of things that can affect your health. And then we provide recommendations for lifestyle changes or follow up or monitoring that could lead to better health in the future.
I really love the trend around preventative health for medicine. Traditionally, it's, as you probably already know, it's you go to the doctor when something is not working.
Yep.
But I love this new trend of companies that are building products or services that are the step before that step. Everybody's going to die, but you can prevent a lot of those things that can really kill you much, much sooner.
Absolutely.
Where can people get an Ezra scan? Is it only in certain cities? Do you guys have plans to offer it nationwide?
Yeah, so you go to Ezra.com and you book a scan. We have multiple types of scans to cater to different price points. The most affordable scan is $1,350. The most comprehensive scan is $2,500. We have HSA dollars. We have Affirm for monthly installments. So we're kind of trying to make it more affordable. We're live in 7 cities. So New York, San Francisco, LA, Miami, Vegas, New Jersey, whatever, I mean, it's Irvine, and I think that's it. And we're planning to launch, we're in about 22 facilities, and we're planning to launch about 40 more facilities in 20 more cities over the next 12 months.
Wow. Are these Ezra facilities, or do you partner with MRI providers?
Yeah, so our model is to partner with ACR accredited imaging facilities that have 3 Tesla MRI scanners and buy MRI scanning time from them and then run
Got it.
our own software and AIs on their machines. So we're gives us the ability to scale much faster and provide access to the best imaging because a lot of these facilities have kind of new state-of-the-art magnets.
What is the plan to continually reduce the cost of getting the scan?
Yeah, so the biggest cost of the scan is the protocol is the scan itself. And so we're continuing to build a lot of AI in order to decrease the scan time. And last year we received FDA clearance for an AI Ezra Flash that allowed us to decrease our full body scan to 30 minutes. Our goal is over the next 2 to 3 years to get to a 10-minute, 15-minute, $500 full body scan. And we've had some breakthroughs internally that kind of give us high degree of confidence that we'll get there.
And then circling back, how does detecting this early really end cancer or prevent cancer? How do you tie those two things together?
Yeah, so if you look at the data, early stage cancer has a 80, 90, 99% 5-year survival rate in many instances for most organs. Late stage cancer has less than a 20% 5-year survival rate. So, 2 out of 10 people with late stage cancer survive. More than 8 out of 10 people with early stage cancer survive. So the way to beat cancer is to find it early.
Mm-hmm.
But you can find it early because there's no way to screen for cancer in most organs. And that's what we've solved with the Ezra full body.
How would one test for all the different types of skin cancer?
Yeah, so it's the kind of gold standard for skin cancer is a dermatology check.
Okay.
There are many AI companies and so on, but at the end of the day, an inspection from a highly qualified dermatologist who kind of does screening routinely is the best way to find skin cancer. And if you have a lot of moles, which I do, you want to monitor the moles over time. So there's again with this concept of longitudinal monitoring over time. So what I do is actually my dermatologist takes photos of all of my moles or kind of the ones that look most problematic, and we just monitor them over time. And if they change abnormally, then we just remove them. And I've had a number of them removed.
Got it. Well, cool. Well, thanks for walking us through Ezra and all the questions I had around cancer. I think similar to you, I have very high risk for heart disease because it runs in my family, but I was also very curious about cancer because that's something I didn't realize that we can detect very early. So
Yeah.
I'm definitely going to sign up for one of those scans.
Yeah, and on the heart disease front, I'll tell you kind of a personal anecdote. I too have a family history of heart disease, and for since I was like 27 when I started doing my blood tests, I've had high cholesterol, and so I tried all of the diets under the sun to kind of bring it down. Didn't work, and it turns out I'm basically genetically predisposed to high cholesterol. And then I did an Ezra scan when we launched our Full Body Plus, which is our standard full body scan MRI plus a low dose chest CT that includes lung cancer screening and a CAC score, coronary calcification score, CAC, which is the best measure for future cardiovascular disease. My CAC was not 0, which at age like 36 when I did it, it should have been 0. And so that combined with high cholesterol, combined with family history of heart disease, after meeting with a number of cardiologists, I decided to go on a statin. And so I'm now on a statin. And here's the crazy thing. My LDL and ApoB went from 190 LDL and maybe like 160 ApoB to 60 LDL and like maybe 55 ApoB now or something like that. So clearly it worked wonders for me. Like a 3x decrease in LDL basically means that I've completely removed the possibility of potential heart disease.
Yeah, I have a similar story where I got my calcium score and it was not 0 as well. And for my age, doctors don't really freak out, but I could tell that she thought it was very abnormal to have any score at my. I also have a very high lipoprotein A score, which is genetic. I was going to go on a statin, but I just this morning bought the inhibitors, which helps with APOB, but also helps decrease lipoprotein A before, I guess, the new drug comes out, which they're working on, which hopefully should come out in the next 5 to 10 years. So that's kind of my game plan. But yeah, you can dial in nutrition, your exercise, but if it's genetic, there's really not much you can do to really move that number outside of medicine. So that's what I've learned, which is very eye opening.
Yeah, totally.
I think this is a good transition into longevity protocols. I read all the stuff you wrote about longevity protocols, and I don't even know where to start. We have the basics, blood tests and biomarkers, supplements, anxiety, and sleep. I don't think we need to go through like the overview of the longevity protocol because it's anyone could read it and it's pretty standard. But within the what everyone should be doing, what are the things that you definitely recommend?
Yeah, so just very, very briefly, right? I'm very into biohacking and optimizing my health for the purpose of just hitting peak performance when I'm 40, so in a couple of years, and then just maintaining that performance over time. And people can read this at emigal.com, but basically there are four big pillars. There's testing, there's diet and supplements, exercise, and there's kind of mental health and focusing on that. And I cover all of those in detail on my blog. Now, in terms of what are the top things in each of those categories, right? So testing, a standard battery of blood tests that includes metabolic health, that includes inflammation markers, that includes for men testosterone, cardiovascular health, and vitamins. That's kind of like table stakes for blood tests. Will be very informative, and we can talk about what you then do with those. Plus a scan. So if you get the blood test, plus you get a full body MRI, I think that gives you a good baseline for your health, and you can then use that to make tweaks and improvements. So that's on the testing. Diet and supplements. I have found that kind of the paleo diet, but light on red meat, is what my body functions best on in terms of athletic performance, plus losing weight, plus just like feeling great. And then on supplements, so it's a long topic because I don't believe in just taking supplements. I believe in taking supplements for a specific reason. And therefore, it needs to be coupled tightly with blood tests so that you know what you're taking supplements for and whether it's working. Exercise, I'm a big fan of weightlifting, and specifically compound weightlifting, so squats and deadlifts, because they engage a lot of muscles. It's a very efficient way to build muscle, build bone density in very little time. And then on mental health, for me, the two most useful things have been, one, exercising a lot, and just like I think physical health is, or mental health is upstream of physical health, right? So you need to be healthy physically first before you can kind of focus on your mind. And then two, meditation and journaling are the kind of key things that for me have helped me manage my mental health and anxiety and so on. And I write about that on the blog.
Yeah, let's definitely dive into each one of those and maybe starting off with the mental health. What kind of meditation do you do? Because I found it very difficult to get into meditative practice and journal, and also curious about journaling and how much time do you spend on that every day? Because when you read all the productivity gurus online, when you look at their morning what a routine, I'm like, dude, take like 5 hours just to do that morning routine. How do you get anything else
I,
done?
I have very little time for this stuff, so I kind of it's highly optimized.
Yeah, what's your highly optimized mental health process?
Yeah. So a funny anecdote. I've been meditating for 15 years. And the amusing thing is calm.com, or Calm, the app, was founded in my living room.
No way.
Yes. So Michael Acton Smith is one of the co-founders, and me were living in London in this kind of townhouse, and together it was kind of sharing a house. And Michael and Tui, who's the co-founder, who was living in San Francisco, who's Tui, Alex Tu is the guy, the $1 million homepage guy. They were on Skype on Sundays, every Sunday, just like coming up with what ultimately became Calm. And so I've been meditating for a very long time, before it was cool, before it was hot, and so on. And the routine that I've had for literally 15 years has been 10 minutes a day, 5 days a week. So every morning I wake up, I have an espresso, I do my journaling, which is 10 minutes. We'll talk about it in a second. And then I do my meditation, which is 10 minutes. And that's it. So the whole thing takes 20 minutes, 30 maybe.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I use the kind of, I'm obviously a big fan of Calm, but recently I've also used Waking Up by Sam Harris. I really like the kind of no bullshit approach that Sam Harris has around meditation. So I practice Vipassana, so I kind of breathe in, breathe out, with guidance from Sam Harris whenever I use it. In terms of journaling, I use two journals. I actually have them right here.
I see.
So I have a notebook, kind of a moleskin notebook, that I use to journal my thoughts. And I literally just like wake up and be like, what am I thinking about? Am I anxious about anything? What am I working on today? What's going through my head? It's kind of like a brain dump of all of my consciousness. Generally, it gravitates towards what's on my mind that's kind of bothering me. And it is remarkable how effective it is to think through your thoughts on paper. And for me at least, most of the time I realize that things that make me anxious or kind of frustrated in a particular morning, not really that big of a deal once you see them on paper. But you don't have that realization until you've written it down and worked through it. That takes me about kind of 10 minutes max. And then I have this journal, the 5-minute journal, which discovered from in like a video with Tim Ferriss, that basically gives you prompts every morning. What you're grateful for, and what would make today great, and the daily affirmation. And this takes like literally 3 minutes. And so my whole mental health routine takes me 20 minutes every day max, so it's like highly optimized. I will say, but as a kind of final thought on that particular one, when I'm really anxious about something, like it's like worried, startup life is like not a straight line, I find that working out more helps. So I will dial in on that and work out twice a day in some periods of time, just to like get my endorphins and get my brain to kind of work properly.
Following that morning routine where you're journaling and meditating every day, what has been the biggest benefit that you've seen?
Just mental kind of stability, ability to building resilience over time, and ability to just like any moment during the day, I can stop and breathe because I have the built-in practice to remember to do that. I think the point of meditation for me, it's not to just like meditate for 10 minutes and I'm done and it's kind of, I move on with my day. The purpose of the practice is to have a daily reminder of, hey, any moment I want, I can just stop and breathe and just take a moment. And that's a very useful thing to be able to do, because like when you stop and breathe, your pulse goes down, you're kind of able to look at things a little bit more objectively and not get too caught into the kind of whatever's going through your mind at that particular moment in time.
What's your current exercise routine?
Yeah, so I work out basically about 5 to 6 hours a week. I don't have more time than that. And I don't work out every day because I'm running a company. It's just like I cannot find an hour every day, 7 days a week to work out. So on Monday, I do an upper body weightlifting session, 60 minutes. I do bench press, overhead press, pull-ups, abs, some bicep curls. On Tuesday, it's a break. On Wednesday, I have my first kind of super heavy compound weightlifting program. So I do squats, overhead press, deadlifts, then I do chin-ups, and I do abs again. I then sometimes, not always, most weeks I actually don't do this, go for a quick run on Thursday. And then Friday's a break. Saturday is probably my hardest workout of the week. I do squats, bench press, overhead deadlifts, then I do chin-ups, I do abs, then I do HIIT. So I do either rowing machine or assault bike or running on a treadmill. I do sprints, so kind of 30-second to a minute sprints, and then I do some mobility. That workout takes like 90 minutes. And then on Sunday, I go for a run. And so this routine gives me a lot of weightlifting. It gives me a lot of zone 2 training, because most of my weightlifts I'm in zone 2. It gives me zone 5 training because I'm doing HIIT. And it gives me cardio, which I quite like. So it kind of touches on everything in 5 hours a week. And I recently posted a very detailed overview of this protocol on my blog.
Yeah. Have you heard of that trend around hybrid athletes?
No.
So there's this new trend around hybrid athletes, which are people that do two sports, and the two sports that it's become known for, which is strength training or weightlifting and running. So it's
Okay.
basically athletes that have very low body fat and a lot of muscle. So they're much bigger than what you would imagine a runner, but running races as fast as any runner that just focuses on running. And benefits of that would be obviously, from a longevity standpoint, it focuses on VO2 max and muscle and lean.
Yeah.
And having both of those, I think, is ideal for longevity protocols.
Absolutely. I didn't know there's a name for it, but that's kind of what I focus on. I actually have a good friend right now, Sahil Bloom, who's
Oh yeah,
training.
he's a great example of that.
Yeah, so he's training to do a sub 2.5 hour marathon.
Very
But he's
fast.
also a big guy. It's just like he's not your typical runner.
And then tying that back into the blood work, kind of curious about how do you dial in your biomarkers? I know you mentioned I know you on your blog you have a full list of things people should check for, and then I know you also talked about how you got your biomarkers into a place where it's in that zone, like the green zone.
Yes.
So how did you do that? Or give us an example of something that you found that was not tested very well, and how'd you dial that in?
So what doesn't get measured doesn't get improved, and it's just like it's true for startups and it's true for the human body. I do the same blood tests every quarter, and I have been for many years. And the objective is to use those blood tests as the kind of benchmark barometer for what I should change in my diet, in my exercise, in my supplements, in order to make sure that I'm in the kind of top decile for all of the different biomarkers. And so what I do is I literally will do a biomarker test. I'm doing the next ones in 2 weeks. I will then have a call with my doctor, and we'll just go through them, and we'll make optimizations, RX optimizations. So do I need to lower my statin dose, or do I need to add some other kind of RX? And then I work with a company called Found that I'm a kind of a small investor in, which is amazing. I can talk a little bit about them, to design personalized supplement protocol in order to optimize certain things. So, for example, I realized, despite the fact that I take a B vitamin recently, that my B vitamins were not like in the middle of the range, even, not to mention kind of top decile. And so did some digging, and it turns out that I have some genetic mutation that prevents my body from properly absorbing B vitamins. And so I had to switch to a methylated B vitamin, basically, in order to account for that kind of genetic inability to absorb B vitamin. And I'm curious what that will do. And I have the blood test in 2 weeks, and I will see whether it worked or not. So kind of it's test, apply an intervention, test again to see if it worked. And my last blood tests were just like perfect end to end. Like I had no marker that wasn't in kind of optimal performance, with the exception of this B vitamin that I'm kind of working on now. And there are many other examples I can give. Like I've been optimizing testosterone, for example, for quite a while in order to get it to, as high as possible without exogenous testosterone treatment and so on. And so I'm constantly using this data to inform behavior and supplements and food and so on.
Where do you get your blood work done?
Yeah, so I have found that the best ones are Quest Lab. So my doctor does an order, like a requisition form. I go to Quest, they draw 30 vials. Whenever I go, they're like, what are you doing? It's kind of, I quite like having my blood drawn, actually. Oddly, I enjoy watching it and so on. I know people get a little bit uneasy about it, but every time I go, it's like 24 blood vials.
Wow.
And
There's also benefits to getting your blood drawn too.
there is, yeah, like you're reducing extra metals in the
Mhm.
body. So I get it at Quest. Insurance covers a lot of it, but I do have to pay some for some of them because they're like so specific to things. And so every time I go, I probably pay some amount of money, but it's not significant. If you have good insurance, you will be able to get most blood tests done on the cheap or with just a small copay.
How did you compile the list of all the biomarkers to track? Because that is a very long list.
It is. It took years, and it was a combination of my doctor plus I have a lot of biohacker friends. So, Brian Johnson's like a good friend, and like Ezra member, and he does a lot of stuff. And I work with Found, and Andrew Herb is the founder of Found. Used to run the human longevity, human performance program for the U.S. military. So it's kind of like, I have a group of friends who are very dialed into this kind of stuff. And so together with them, I kind of narrowed in on what I think are the most important markers without overdoing it, right? Because like you could do a lot more than I'm doing, but then it becomes like too difficult to manage and handle and too expensive and so on. And so my protocols tend to be very pragmatic. It's kind of like whatever is necessary in order to have the data you need in order to deliver results and nothing more.
And how does Fount work with the test results?
Yeah, so found.bio is their domain. Basically offer a service where you can send them blood tests and they will tell you what they think your supplement protocol should be. And then every month for a subscription, they will send you the supplements in the mail. So I get like a roll of pouches for a day. And it means that whenever I travel and so on, I don't need to worry about kind of bringing a whole bunch of like jars with me and containers and so on. I just take a few pouches from my roll and I'm done. And so strongly recommend Found. They're kind of a phenomenal product because they take something that would be otherwise would take me a lot of time, and they just make it simple, and they have high quality sourcing for the supplements. And every quarter I send them my blood tests and I get a new kind of protocol, and that's that.
Got it. So it's not one pill, it's all the pills just shipped
Oh
to
yeah, I
you.
take about 40 pills a day.
Okay.
Yeah. Each pouch is about 10.
You take them all at once, or is it just spread out?
Yeah, it's like, just down it in water and done. and it's a lot of stuff that I think applies to everyone. So it's kind of like a lot of omega, which is good for inflammation, and kind of your omega 6:3 ratio and so on. A lot of vitamins, a lot of kind of inflammation related things, a lot of kind of allergy related things like quercetin and stuff like that. So it's kind of like nothing out of the ordinary. It's just like the convenience of it is quite amazing.
And then how did you dial in your testosterone without, I guess what everyone's doing is TRT, but I guess you dialed it in without.
I dialed it in without any TRT, and I don't plan to take any TRT anytime soon. I think kind of the harms are greater than the benefits there, and at least if you look at the data. So kind of even people who are like very into this stuff, like Brian. I've recently given it up, so it's kind of like I don't actually think it's a good thing unless you have a medical indication for doing it. And so I decided that I was gonna like improve my testosterone. It was okay. It was like maybe like 350, 400. I wanted to get it to close to 800, 900. And so the research turns out alcohol will really mess with your testosterone. And so I stopped drinking, and I rarely ever drink anymore. Maybe 3, 4 times a year max, and it has to be like a really special occasion. Body weight significantly impacts your testosterone, or like the body fat percentage of your body weight. And so the leaner you are, the more, the higher your testosterone levels. And then maybe that there's some correlation there as opposed to causation. It's like if you're lean, you're likely to be working out more and eating better and so on. So, and then finally, and there's actually some research around this, is compound weightlifting, especially deadlifts, leads to increased levels of testosterone in men. And so, again, none of these things are done in isolation. The workout routine is combined with the supplements, testing, and so on, and kind of like a unit that is designed to optimize these things. And so, as a result, my testosterone is very good. It's not quite where I would want it to be, but like it's better than what you would expect in a man.
And as far as longevity protocols, is there anything that you do that's different for diet and nutrition?
I try to keep it simple. I am mostly on a paleo diet. I have 1 or 2 cheat meals a week. I don't have any dietary kind of restrictions. I'll eat gluten, I'll eat dairy. I know a lot of people swear about not eating gluten and dairy, especially if you're saying you're on a paleo diet, because like the paleo diet should include gluten and dairy. But I'm not allergic to them. I don't have sensitivities to them, so I kind of like enjoy indulging in a burger every now and then. What I do religiously, and this is, I think, what can have the biggest impact from a diet standpoint to anyone, irrespective of what diet you are on, is calorie tracking. I try to stay in like a 5-10% deficit on a weekly basis. And actually, one trick that I found works really well for me is I have a friend who is also a colleague of mine at Ezra, and we have a bet, which is like every week we will send each other screenshots of our average for the week in terms of calorie intake. And in my case, if I go over 2,000 calories, I need to pay him $20. So that accountability is useful because it helps me track and monitor and make sure that I like don't give Alex $20 every week.
Yeah. Which
I think this year we're on the what? It's 8th week of the year almost. I have to give him $60. So so I was compliant, 5 of the 8 weeks so far.
Which app do you use to track your calories?
I use Carbon, which is a very useful app because you have kind of a weekly check-in. And every week you get a check-in, and the check-in asks you for some compliance questions. So it's kind of like a nice reminder of, hey, you're tracking this not just to track, you're tracking it to keep it under a certain kind of threshold. And here's a reminder that you have or you haven't.
Yeah, I started tracking my food as well. And for anyone that's working on any of the products, there has to be some time where they could just integrate AI, where I could just take a photo and it could just upload it for me.
Yes.
I think that would be like super
I
amazing.
think they're actually technically already possible.
Yeah, I've seen it on Twitter. I don't know if it's real or not, but I've seen it. And then the second thing I saw that works really well is just like pretty much every day there are certain foods I eat over and over again. I just know like what it would hit, and it's already kind of saved in my app. So I can't eat it every day because it gets too boring, but every other day or every 3 days, it's just the same things every single morning.
Yes.
I found that to be super helpful.
I have like a dozen or so recipes and foods that I just eat again and again and again, and I just have them saved in the app. So it literally takes me 3 minutes a day to in my food intake. So for anyone kind of not doing it, that's kind of like, oh, I don't want to track another thing. It's a little bit of a time investment in the beginning because you're creating all your recipes and so on in your app. But after a month or of doing it, rarely do people eat different things in another month that they haven't eaten in a prior month. And so then it becomes really easy because you have all
Yeah.
the things there.
Do you have any go-to recipes for hitting your protein or fiber macros?
Yes. So sweet green is great, high quality produce, but their sweet green salads is just like not enough protein. And so I literally go to sweet green and I add the max chicken, and the big, and like 4 times chicken and arugula, and then I add some like olive oil on it, and that's my meal.
Got it.
I think that they know me now at the sweet green that I go to because they like laugh every time. There's like basically a plate of chicken.
Yeah. I used to do that when I went to Whole Foods, and I would just
Yeah.
grab the grilled chicken and just, how they have a hot bar? That's
Yes,
the only thing I would get, and just throw it into the box.
yes. Yeah. So my meals are generally I'm eating the same thing. It's most days. And one trick I have found that really helps if you're on a caloric deficit is planning things. So if you're going out for a dinner in an Italian restaurant, you are bound to be eating 1,400 calories. It's kind of like
Oh,
the
easy.
starter, the main, and the dessert.
Minimum, yeah.
So then I just skip lunch that day, and I'll have like a protein shake in the morning, not eat anything during the day, and then I can go to dinner and eat 1,600 calories, and I'm still like on track with my plan.
Got it. Anything else you want to mention for longevity protocols that we didn't cover?
There's a lot there, and I think what's important is to just start with like blood testing, exercise, tracking your food, and those are probably will get you going. And then once you're on the treadmill, it gets easier to layer in all of the other things that could be important too, such as an Ezra scan and other types of things.
Yeah, one thing I would add to that too is I'm 41 now, so a few years older than you, and I found that once it didn't happen at 40, but at 41, I wish I would have invested a lot more in mobility when I was much younger, because I'm noticing that I'm getting injured a lot easier. It takes a little bit longer to recover. I'm adding a lot more miles running, and I'm noticing like a lot of different muscles will start cramping up, which will put me out for a few days. And this week I haven't been able to exercise for a whole week. So I think proper hydration, I think drinking lots of water and spending time doing mobility, whether it's yoga or you just have like a 10-minute routine. I just wish I did that much younger and started much earlier.
You bring up a very important point. I actually dislike mobility work. And
Me too.
My wife just like keeps telling me that I should be doing it more. And whenever I get injured is when I go like, oh, I should have been doing more mobility. So I have a new habit. Let's see if it sticks. I'm trying. Is in the morning after that kind of meditation, I do a 10-minute foam rolling session. It's kind of like just like full body foam rolling. I timed it. It takes 8 minutes, and so I've been relatively consistent with it so far, and it's too early to tell how much it helps, but I think over time it
Yeah. Do you do anything else for your morning routine?
No, that's it. Spend some time with my wife. It's kind of what I also try to do, because then I start the Zoom life, and and then I'm on Zooms most of the day.
One thing I did want to talk about, switching topics, is your annual challenges. So I saw that you went off the grid. You try different sleeping techniques. I mean, when I say sleeping, it's what it was like going to
2.5 hours a day for 2 months. It was not.
Did not sound fun.
Basically, no, it wasn't. That's one experiment. It's called polyphasic sleeping.
Yeah,
and it's one experiment I wouldn't recommend. It's
okay.
It's just like being a zombie for.
So I was curious, why do you do these annual challenges? And I did want to go into one of them.
I will just be like on that problem or thing, just like nonstop. And so to try to break away a little bit from just being focused on work and on Ezra, I have these challenges that I do every year where I try a new thing, generally puts me outside of my comfort zone. It has to be either a mental or a physical challenge. And it's just a useful way to disconnect from the daily routine and try something that is new and where I could learn something.
Got it. What's the challenge that you're doing this year?
Yeah, so I'm doing something pretty crazy this year, which is I'm going to experiment with a lot more psychedelics than I
Okay.
have in the past. So I've done mushrooms in the past and actually had a profound experience on mushrooms. Helped me grieve when my mother passed away. So I'm kind of a big believer of their therapeutic kind of use. I don't consume drugs for like entertainment purposes, at least not anymore. But for therapeutic purposes, I think psychedelics specifically could be very useful. And it's well researched now that psilocybin, ketamine, and so on can help with depression, PTSD, etc. And so I'm experimenting with that this year. And my plan is to experiment with the mushrooms, LSD, ayahuasca, all under kind of guided, supervision and in the right conditions. I don't do these things lightly.
Yeah. So it sounds like this year the challenge is around psychedelics and you're going to experiment with, I guess, would you do just compile a full list and then just working your way
Yeah,
down the list and seeing how,
basically,
how you enjoy it?
basically, yeah, that's kind of it. And then kind of see how they compare. And
Yeah.
then I think I'll document some of them on my blog and then kind of try to, provide one of my other posts around.
I think that'd be great. I think some of the things I've looked into, I've done ayahuasca, which I would definitely recommend if
Yeah,
you've done mushrooms. I- That was probably one of the biggest life-changing experiences I've had.
I've heard that
Yeah.
numerous times now from everyone who's tried it, or all of the people I've spoken with
Yeah.
have tried it. And so, um,
I also want to try ketamine and I want to try doing MDMA therapy with my partner because I think a lot of these, I guess, psychedelics for therapeutic purposes could also, obviously they're for yourself, but doing it with your partner, I think to build a much stronger relationship, I think is also super helpful.
absolutely, wholeheartedly agree. I think these tools, when used correctly, with the right guidance and the right kind of supervision and so
Yeah.
on, can be life changing.
Yep. What was your challenge last year?
Yeah. So last year, my challenge was go off the grid for a month, not a month at a time, because I just like unfortunately I can't right now. I'm
Yeah.
running a program, but just trying to disconnect from any screen whatsoever for a month, and almost succeeded. That it wasn't quite a month, but like I was able to just essentially go in the woods with my wife and just go hiking and just be in nature without any connection to technology,
Yeah.
which is I recommend to everyone. It's just such a great way to decompress, and there's something about being in nature with nature that has a very powerful effect on the brain.
Got it. Then maybe to wrap up, I know that you follow a lot of tech trends as well. What technology advancement are you the most excited about right now that's either happened or is on the brink of happening?
A lot is happening right now.
Yeah, I know.
There are so many things that I could put out there, and therefore I can't choose just one. But I think I can give you three that are in healthcare that are going to have a significant impact on health and health span and helping people live longer, healthier, and so on. The first one has already kind of started to happen, and it is going to happen to a greater extent. I think it's going to be the invention of this century in healthcare, and that's GLP-1 agonists. So GLP-1s and the derivatives, the double, triple GLPs, and so on, are showing that you can help a person reduce their body weight by like a third, which will reduce risk for heart disease, reduce risk for diabetes, reduce risks for cancer, improve mental health. There's now some research showing that it doesn't just help people eat less, but it helps with addiction. So people are drinking less, they're quitting smoking. It's just like you're looking at all this data, and I know GLP-1s are getting a little bit of bad rep because like there's a shortage and obviously people with diabetes need these drugs, and maybe they don't have access to them in many instances. So like there are many unsolved problems, but from a tech standpoint, I think this drug is going to have the most profound impact on healthcare in since penicillin. It's just like a remarkable thing. The second thing, I think we're going to see a lot more mRNA related drugs and vaccines, and actually kind of genomic based initiatives to help treat disease and cancer specifically. So like I think we'll see mRNA vaccines that will be able to help prevent cancer in many instances or certain types of cancer. And then I think we'll see CRISPR-Cas9
Mm-hmm.
being used this decade in vivo to treat certain diseases. And there's some data research showing that there might be a solution for HIV by using a person's genetic material and CRISPR to in vivo to help them essentially completely solve the problem. And so I think GLP-1s, mRNA, CRISPR are like a really powerful combo that are all happening at the same time that could significantly impact people's health. And then kind of I wouldn't be doing my job well if I didn't say that I do think this decade we can solve cancer from a perspective of survival rates by finding cancer early. And one of the key ways in which you can do that is a full body MRI. And Ezra is kind of at the forefront of that.
Yeah, those are all great technology advancements, and super excited to see how the world evolves with those inventions. Well, thanks so much for jumping on the podcast. I know you're really busy running a tech
Thank
startup and having extremely ambitious mission around ending cancer. So thanks for joining and sharing all of your insights. And thanks again.
you, Michael. This is great. I enjoyed it.